event. My name is Senthamil, and I'm a kind of MEP on the office development. Let me move to the slide about myself. Yeah, this is just a brief about myself before I jump into the session. I've been doing office development, which is the SPFX development for SharePoint and Teams development, and Power Apps and Power Platform comes along with the SharePoint. I do more Power Platform combining with SharePoint more often than CRM, because most of the time Power Platform works in along with the CDS, which is the Common Data Services from the CRM, but mine is mainly on the SharePoint. I have my blog mssgreat.net. As the name is suggesting, is like eat, sleep, drink Microsoft products almost. And you can follow me on the Twitter. I am most of the time active, and I have my YouTube channel as well. The YouTube channel I do partially the SPFX development, which is the open source Bootstrap jQuery with SharePoint development, plus the Power Platform and the Power Automate, mostly Power Automate and the Power Apps, not much into the Power BI. And today's session, you would learn about key thing. This is the simple agenda which I have now. Some of them might have known about Bootstrap, and some of them might have not known about the Bootstrap who are directly into Power Platform development or Power Apps development. Those who are from the open source plus the web development, they are familiar with Bootstrap. So before I go into the design, I would just give a brief about what is Bootstrap. And next, the Font Awesome. Font Awesome, again, few of them might have known it, and some of them might have not known about it. I'll just brief about it. And Power Apps, of course, some of you guys are pro in Power Apps development. I'm just one of the guy who do a Power Apps along with SharePoint. So I'll just go through just one simple form. How do you make it much more looking more better than just a normal static form from the Power Apps, which is like a boring form. Finally, I would demo on how do you do it, and later you can any questions you can always post me or to the user group, and I would be able to address your questions if I could not do it now. Okay. So this would be the final. This is kind of a Bootstrap which you see here. That sample Bootstrap form, which is 4. Currently, the version is Bootstrap 4. They are working on Bootstrap 5, which is more of like without jQuery. Bootstrap works with jQuery. If you are in a web-based platform, you know what is jQuery, and you would be much familiar about it. And if you can see here, the key concept of Bootstrap design is that you would always have a small icon at the left and a placeholder. We call it as a placeholder, and all the controls will be like simple, mild, grayed out controls, which you can see here. And these are all the controls icons, which makes it much better to view. And most of the time, developer would use the Font Awesome icons, because Font Awesome icons are able to trade into any of the shape and sizes, rather from 60 by 60 or 255 by 55. It's primarily an SVG, which is more of vector graphics. So that's why most of the people tend to use Font Awesome with Bootstrap. Bootstrap has also his own icons, but it has very few icons limited to it. But Font Awesome gives you thousands of icons which are free already. So this is a typical form which you can do using your Bootstrap. And you can see 2 types of forms, one vertically aligned and nicely designed. On the other side, you would see some of the forms without icons, but in few places, if you see here email, it signifies that it is at, and some of them are looking much prettier. So when I was programming for Power Apps, especially on SharePoint in the web APIs, you cannot be having a static Power Apps form looking so bored without any kind of a UI. So that's why I started to think, how do we make the Power Apps form much kind of more of web UI framework based. And then I started digging more and more options on how to do it. then I come up with an idea on how to make it much more brighter. This is about the font awesome. Font awesome, if you are checking in, maybe later I would show you. There are several, there are pro versions as well as the free versions. Free versions, you get around 1,000 plus fonts, around 1,000, I guess, and they vary in categories. You can just go into fontawesome.com and start looking into typing the icons and then copy paste the classes. Usually we use it in the web-based with just adding as a class name. So it becomes much easier to use the font awesome in the web-enabled UI. Pro version, you can also buy Pro version. Then it comes with 5,000 plus icons, I guess. So much more than that. So that's the difference of free and the Pro. Most of the scenarios, free icons would help. They cover in primary scenarios like the email, users. So most of the time they cover it. And if you really like it, want to have more, then you can use the Pro versions. Okay, so before you start using it for Power Apps, you have several steps to do. Some of the steps you can bypass it because I've already created those icons in the Excel and I've uploaded it to the GitHub. Later I can share you the URL. You can straight away use that Excel if you want to bypass it. These steps are not just for the font awesomes. Any fonts which are in the SVG format, you can use it. So you don't really have to just stick to font awesome. There are several other free fonts which are available with SVG. So you can just convert that and then use it. I would just give you just a brief about the steps. Later, I would go through one by one so that it's easy for you to remember those steps plus side by side, which I'm doing it. Okay. So the first step would be you need to go to Font Awesome site. This is the Font Awesome site. If I can navigate here. So this is the Font Awesome site. You go to the start place, and when you scroll down a bit, you would see a desktop. So you need to download Font Awesome as a desktop version rather than like a normal download. So they provide in different format, one for the web, one for the desktop, one for the UI. So you can use it for the desktop, and the desktop download is the SVG, which you can get it here. So whenever you download the desktop version, it comes with these kind of folders. So for example, they keep upgrading the versions. You would see last time I downloaded 5.14, maybe they add more icons, then it becomes 5.15. So you get the desktop icons and navigate to the SVG folder, then you would see brands, regulars, and solids. So those are the one which you would create the folder and using it here. You unzip the folder, you would see these folders here. Then you have SVG files. These SVG files, you need to convert it into XML because to use it within the Power Apps, you need to create it as a kind of a image. So these icons are going to be like an image so that they would be rendered properly into your Power Apps. And these images are not just normal image drawn. These images are like vector graphics. So for a vector graphics, you will have to follow a vector path. So basically, these SVG, when you convert their extension to XML, they would reveal their path, which is the SVG path, wherever the path is being drawn. So these paths can be drawn using the SVG, and you import it into your Power Apps. So once you convert it into XML, transform your XML using your Excel. Then from the Excel, use it into your Power Apps. So that is the path you should follow in. As I mentioned you earlier, you don't need to follow all these steps. You can jump straight away to step 6 if you already have the Excel. I have imported the icons of version 5.14 into the Excel. and already been uploaded into GitHub. I can send you the link later. So if you are using those Excel, you don't really need to follow these steps till 4 maybe, because I've already transformed the Excel, the SVG, and converted it into XML. Hello. Sorry,
Hey,
I was muted.
Senthamil. Yeah, okay, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, the mouse was there. It was just clicked. Okay. So these steps you can ignore till 4 maybe. 5 and the 6 you can use it here. Let me start doing that. Before that, I'll show you the form. So final product, when you start doing it in the Power Apps, it would look exactly like this one. So this is a Power Apps form with icon, which I have added in using the font awesome. You can see here. You can even add your own color because, as I mentioned you, it is a vector graphic. It is not a solid image, and it is a vector graphic. So the vector graphic, you can color it in any color which you are looking for. Okay, let me start the demo. Okay, I would go through the steps of transforming the SVG into XML plus the Excel file, so that not just the font awesome. In case if you in the future if you have a SVG file, you convert that into XML and then import it. So let me open the folder and then let me use it right away. Opening the folder from here, if you can see here. So these are the folders which you can see here. Hello.
I'm, s- I think there is some lag on the screen. I just saw your this file explorer. Previously, I was seeing the other screen, so I just wanted to
Oh,
give you a
okay.
heads up.
Okay. Okay. So this is the folder which I downloaded, and you can see the font awesome is here in the SVG, and you can see 3 folders. And inside the branch, you would see all the SVG files. Probably, if it is not visible, I can zoom in. Let me zoom in, or I'll just put it. Oops. Okay. The medium icons, yes. So these are the SVG files. Usually all the font which you get from the free nowadays, they do the vector graphics and you can get it in the SVG format. So these are the SVG format, and the name, if you see here, these are the names which are used in the font awesome directly here. If you can go to the icons, let me filter by some of the free icons. So this is the free icon. If you use the users, so these are the names. If you see here the username, these are the names which are directly used in the file name as well. So whenever you export it into Excel, this is the name you would query within your Power Apps. So once you identify your SVG files, what you should do with that, you need to convert that into probably maybe an XML. So to convert a SVG to XML, you can use normal. You can just use your normal. Okay. So you can use just your normal command prompt, which is rename star dot or asterisk dot whatever, which is SVG into XML. So what this command would do is it would rename whatever which is in this folder and convert it into XML. So right now I already converted some of them into XML and I have it in the folder. If you can see here, FS, Phantasm, SVGs, and file for Excel. Okay. See here, all the icons I have converted into XML with the command, single command. So usually it is up to you how you want to organize your icons, because some of the time you will not use all the icons, so that the Power Apps may not become bulky. So in that scenario, you just use icons only which are needed. So for example, if you're using only for 5 or 10 icons, you don't really have to import everything. So importing is your choice. But basically, in most of the times when I was developing a Power Apps, the Power Apps would have 4, 5 screens or 10 screens. So if it has a multiple screens, then you never know at what time these icons will be useful. So I used to import all of the icons into it. I think around when you start to import, the Excel file may be around 500 KB to around 1 MB, which is not a problem most of the time, because these are just XML files with SVG paths. Okay. If you see here, I have dumped all the SVG file and converted into XML. So now you should use Excel to convert that or import it into your Power Apps. So now I'm going to use the Excel. I would use the blank screen Excel for now. Okay, so open up the Excel, and in the Excel you would see the data, and from the data you would see from other source, from folder. So now we are going to transform those XML files into a readable path, maybe. Okay, so let me copy that folder where the icons are there for Excel and put it here, and then click OK. Okay, if you see here, all the XML file have been loaded. It just gives you the preview of the files. It will not show all the files, but it will try to load all the XML file. It's just a preview. And you need to click on the transform data, because these XML files, when it is going to be transformed, you need to get the path of those SVG. And once it is loaded, the transform screen is loaded, you would see the content here. Click on this content. It would evaluate into a query. Since this is an XML, it shows the X path of those properties. Click OK, and it will evaluate all the queries. And finally, it will bring you to this screen, which contains a table of all the XPath. Then you need to split that out. Do not change anything, just click OK. And finally, this is ready for import. So basically, if you see here, what it is that SVG path is about, I'm just speaking about path always, path so much of a time. What is that is about is like, if you can see here, each icon is nothing but a polygon, or kind of a closed polygon which are drawn with multiple paths. So these paths are embedded within your SVG file. So these SVG file contains details about how an image is formed by drawing multiple points from a polygon. And these details will be stored in this XML format. That's it. So what we do is we use the Power Apps, create an image. This image will draw you a path of all the polygon and color the path. That's it. So that's how the icon is drawn. So now this transform data is ready, and you can just close and load. It takes a while, not too long. And if you see here, this is the data which we need. That's it. So this is the source XML for your Power Apps. So now you can import this Excel into your Power Apps and start using it. And remember, if you see here, all the icon name will be .xml. What I did is that I took an extra step to remove all the .xml, so that in your Power Apps, whenever you query by lookup, you can just look up by the name rather than .xml by giving a .xml full name. But it's all up to you. It's up to you how do you import it with the name, and you can even change your table name Right now, by default, it adds a source.name, path.attribute, path.view box, but you can change it to any name because it is a Excel table, and you know very well about how to import Excel table into Power Apps and then start using it. Okay, so you can save this Excel in any format. Basically, what I did is I would just tell you how my Excel is designed. If I go to SVGs and the Phantasm, and this Phantasm XML, Excel is the one which is uploaded into GitHub, and anyone can use it. So this Phantasm, what it does is, I have imported each SVG folder as a different sheets. You can see here, each one is a different sheet. Solid icons in a different sheet, brands icon in a different sheet, and regular icon. And I have named it such a way that the column I renamed it to name and path and the VBox. And also, if you notice that I've changed the .xml, I removed the .xml, and all the icon name is just the name. And remember that this has to be a table name. And if you go to the table design, you can even change this table name. Why? Because most of the time Excel would name it as table 1, table 2, table 3 most of the time. But when you import it into your Power Apps, this is the name which is going to be shown in your Power Apps. So you name it such a way which is easy for you. Whenever you import, you know what you are importing in. And the other thing I want to mention about is that you see the file, the whole file content, which is around 504 KB. So the 504 KB is the full Excel file with all the icons. You can directly import it into your Power Apps. So now I would move into Power Apps. Move to Power Apps. I have designed already the form. Maybe for easier purpose, I will just create one simple Canvas app. So usually I create a Canvas app, which is easier to design. Let me load it. New screen. Okay, so before designing the form, let me open or just show you how the icon is created. Then we'll just go through the form design. Let me insert image. First, I need to import the Excel. Go to the data and import, maybe just type import from Excel. So here you need to specify the path which is used to, which has all the icons. Okay, the Phantasm. Okay, if you see here, these are the 3 tables which we saw in the Excel. That's why renaming those table is much more critical now. And also, in case if you are just loading 1 or 2 icons, or you are just using 2, 3 icons, you don't really have to import everything. So most of the time, the solid icons would help. It has so many of the design. So it's up to you. In this for demo, I'll just connect it to all the table and just import. And these are the sources. You can use it here. And let me, to show the icon, what you should do is that, let me move this here. Insert media image. So I'm just inserting an image, plain image. I'm not changing anything. It's just a normal image from the Power Apps. This image, you can just make it to have it as an icon. Okay, so let me use the sample of it. Remove the sample image. That's it. So this is the convention. You just copy paste it from copy paste for all the icons. So basically what you trying to do here is that there is a function which is called encode URL, and there is a convention to convert your SVG into an image. Just say that data, which is the Excel data, which comes from the XML, use the encode URL, which is the XML encoded one. The view box is the property which comes from your Excel. Remember, we had the view box column, which is from the Excel. And this is the data source, solid icons. And the name is the user type, which is the name of the icon. And path fill is the one which I mentioned you. Any SVG would have a path with multiple points and the polygon, basically the polygon. Get all the points, which is stored in the Excel in the name of path, and just bind it here. Okay, so now this will draw a user type. That's it. And remember that it is a SVG. Why I said is a vector graphic, because it will scale. It is drawing. It is not embedded, or it is not a picture. So now it is drawing. So whatever the scale you're trying to enlarge it, it will draw. So there is no trade-off on the design. The view box, you need to specify the view box, because sometimes this is optional as well. The view box field tells the icon that a particular icon, whenever it draws a polygon for a particular icon, it has its own container. For example, this user type, no matter whatever you try to enlarge it here, it would have a space on the left and the right. So this view box will make sure that this icon looks more perfect, even though when the image is resized. So the view box, and if you don't have a view box optional property, it's fine, but sometimes it may be looking a bit choppy. So usually I was doing some R&D, so I usually give the view box, because each icon will have their own set of sizes. And this is the way you import it into your Power Apps. So now all your Power Apps can be used with icons now. So this is the easy way. So now when you are starting design your form, you can just start using your icons right away here. Okay. So now how do you color this one is by the RGB value. So now this becomes like a standard icon with the black. No one likes a black icon unless you're designing your form with just a kind of normal form with a gray format. So if you are not using it, then you can just go by the RGB value. So now I'm going to show you how to color it. Give me a moment. I'm just checking how to include the RGB. Screen. Let me start. Okay. So since this is kind of HTML format, you can also use RGB, or you can use hexagon. So the fill property is the one which will dictate what is the color you should use. You can be using within your icons. In my case, let me use hexagon. Use the hexagon, yes. So you can find out, I mean, defining the hexagon plus RGB, so it's all up to you. You can just use whatever the color you want. Fill property is the one which would be used. Previously, I was using a variable, because most of the time you would have a fixed theme within your Power Apps. Bootstrap 4 comes with specified theme. If you want to match with the Bootstrap theme, then you can declare your own variable and then start using it like the way I declared it before. So here I added it as a static value for the Bootstrap, for the icon. It is a direct blue color. But Power Apps has another option wherein you can declare it as like a property. For example, in my case, what I do is that Let me initialize it in the onVisible. Visible, I just say this property here. So you can initialize these properties, which is like primary. Bootstrap would always have a theme which have the primary success info warning, which are like just a color coded concept. Anytime when you want to show a danger icon, it will be always in red. If you want to show a warning icon, it will be in orange. If there is an info, it will be in a slightly blue color. So you can define your own parameter, and this variable you can start using it in your image. So like last time I have used it like a parameter. Primary, and this one should be working. Let me put it as primary. Okay. So now the primary color is blue, but I will have to make it visible. So usually I do this way, just navigate between the screen. That's it. Yeah. You can change it to success. So it becomes like a variable. So what I'm trying to demo is here is that this color is kind of parameterized. You don't have to stick to one color. You can parameterize and then change the color based on your need. So it becomes green. So you can parameterize like a CSS. What I would see that it becomes like a CSS. Your CSS variables are here. So anytime when you want to change the color, just change the parameter, then it becomes like a color. Okay. So this is how you add any icon to your Power Apps. So this is how you design it. So now coming to the original form design, hopefully this is helpful. Let me add a form. Usually, okay, first I need to add the SharePoint. SharePoint is here. Okay, I have a URL. Let me navigate to the URL. Form.com. Okay. This is the URL which I have, mssdeck.sharepoint.com. And I have event registration form. Event, I think it is event registration form. 1 minute. Okay, let me use the schedule training. Okay. I've added the data source for SharePoint, which is the schedule training. So now I'm going to add a form based on that. Form, maybe edit form. Okay. Data source would be schedule training. Okay. Usually I would remove, I don't use attachment. Okay, that's it. So you can see here, this is a normal Power Apps form without any icons, a bit traditional form with kind of a static text, and then it is kind of, sometimes it is so boring to see. Usually what I do is I change it into the gray theme, which it comes along with here. We go to the theme and then change it to the gray, orange, gray. So change it to the gray theme so that it some of the controls, even when you add it by default, it matches to the Bootstrap UI. It becomes like a gray border. And to touch this form or to edit this form, you really have to unlock this. If you see here, everything is locked. Why? Because each one is a card, and whenever you try to move around, it is responsive. So they try to make it responsive and then arrange it like a Bootstrap column. So in a way that it is responsive. If you want to really touch the form and then change the width and the height, you really have to unlock it and then change it here. Let me come into the right way. Okay, it depends on how you change it. So now If you really want to add an icon or make it to look like a Bootstrap, first thing you should remember that you are designing a form, which means that you are playing a role of a designer. So designing any UI designing is a tedious job. You cannot be just thinking that it's an easy one, just drag and drop or copy paste. Some of them you can do, but you have to really think over that. Designing is one of the tedious part because you really have to look into pixel level of details if you want to have a very great design on the form. So for that, let me remove it and unlock it. Okay. So we need to unlock it first. And usually what I do is the border, I change it to a thin border. So right now the border is 2, change it to 1. And the border color, I would always use my own border color, which is a very thin border. Okay. Even this is fine. It's up to you how do you design it, but make sure that it looks more like a thin, and you can start adding your controls beside. And remember that whatever the form which Power Apps adds by default, they make it responsive by adding a dynamic value for the left and the right and the width. So if you see here, if you take a case of the left align or the right align, okay, if you see here on the right side, if you see here, this Y position. Y position is nothing but a kind of a formula. They don't give a fixed Y position as well as the fixed size for the form. Because whenever you start resizing the container, they always try to match with the container. That happens by this formula or a relative value. It is not a fixed value or the absolute value. It is by the relative value. And you can easily see the formula that parent dot width minus 60, which means that whatever the parent control width it takes, it just adds a padding or something that minus 60, so that it always there is a space in the container 60. Okay. So similarly, when you try to add icon in between, like for example, you can just copy paste icon and then put it here, resize it, and add an image, rounded text, and then resize it. It looks like a Bootstrap. It is a kind of a tedious job, but it really works your form to look much better. So in that scenario, you need to really think whether your form has to be responsive, or you want the form to be kind of a static, positioned at the static level. Once you start breaking your form and change your left and right properties, then say for example, in this scenario, if I just start moving this, you can see here, the formula is gone. So you have to be a bit careful before you design a form. Make sure that you really want the responsive, or the form is a fixed form. It doesn't change the position, or it doesn't move the position whenever there is a screen change happens. So you really need to decide on how to do it. In my scenarios, for example, I designed this form. I show you the original form which is designed. Some of them are here, forget it. So I designed this form to be kind of responsive. I took so much of a time to design this form. Why? Because I want this form to be responsive as well. Because sometime when you move the form over, see here, it's still the text boxes and other controls will move on, because I didn't break my control width and the height. What I did was I added an image. This is nothing but an image. For an image, you have two choices. One is that why I added as an image for the controls here. Image, only the button and the image has a rounded radius, border radius properties. If you see here, the border radius property, only the button and the image has this border radius property. If you want to really show a control kind of a curved or kind of a bended edge on your squarish control, you really need to use either an image or the button control. Most of the time I use the image for a curved look. and make it to disable. Make the property to disable, and the image would have a fill property. The fill property, I always use any of the gray filled properties, and it has a border which is like a slightly darker border, which gives you a feeling of you have another kind of a container with filled in. On top of it, you just add your icon. And this image property, if you see here, I try to follow the same formula. The Y path is always a formula. So no matter whatever the position you change it, the image and the icon will also follow the same Y pattern. Similarly for the icon is here, phantasm icon. The phantasm icon is also kind of move along with the control. So in that way, I designed all the form. I agree that it is a kind of a tedious work, but if you really want to use your form to be more beautiful looking, you have no choice. You have to spend some time and make it much more beautiful. And again, this design is up to you. I don't say that you really have to follow the bootstrap approach. Bootstrap approach is the one which I liked it. So if you have some other material design or you have your own design, you can still follow it and make sure that you have the phantasm icon plus you have your design framework already in. So that's how you start to design your form. Okay, so that's all I have from my side. Any questions? I have 5-10 minutes for questions. Hello.
Thank you so much, Senthamil. I mean, this was really helpful. I don't see any question on the chat, but if anyone wants to ask a question, please unmute and you can directly ask.